He's been kind of around the block, right?
Yeah, he's in Canada now.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I believe we are live.
Okay.
And it is indeed 7:30 in Korea. So I know people are starting to hop on to the Zoom. I can see people are getting on. So we'll just give it maybe a few more seconds as our panelists also get comfortable and they've got their cup of coffee, as it's early in the morning here in America, especially for Connor in LA. But wait a few more seconds. But if you're all hopping on, welcome. We'll just start in just a few seconds here. All right, so I think we'll begin, seeing that it is time and we want to also end on time. So welcome to Tuesday Talks. My name is Jung Rock and I'm with Initial View, and we're delighted that you're here this evening with us. For those of you who have participated in other Tuesday Talks and are returning, welcome again. We're so delighted to have you with us. It's hard to believe this is our 4th Tuesday Talks for Korea. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. We know there's a lot competing for your time, so thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
오늘 오셔서 감사합니다. 제 이름은 김정록, Initial View 대표는 김정록이고요. 우리는 오늘 Middlebury, Davidson 이랑 Claremont McKenna 사정관들이랑 같이 대화를 나눌 겁니다. 지난주와 같이 언제든지 문의할 거 있으시면, 사정관들에게 문의할 거 있으시면 언제든지 QA 박스나 유튜브에서 지금 보시고 계신 분들은 거기에 코멘트 박스에다가 언제든지 문의를 올려주시면 우리가 영어로 번역해서 사정관들에게 드리겠습니다. Okay, well, today we have a really exciting webinar prepared for you. We have great admissions officers from Claremont McKenna College, Davidson, and Middlebury here. And we also have 2 alums from these universities joining us today. So I'm really excited. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our wonderful panelists. So I believe Connor from McKenna College, Claremont McKenna College is starting off. So go ahead, Connor.
Great, thank you. Yes, the earliest one is here. Good morning or good evening, everybody. My name is Connor Fritz. I am from Claremont McKenna College, which is in Los Angeles County, just outside of downtown Los Angeles. We are in a small town called Claremont, which is a nice kind of little idyllic college town. And Claremont also hosts 4 other top liberal arts colleges. So Scripps College, Pitzer College, Harvey Mudd College, and Pomona College, and Claremont McKenna College all make up the Claremont Colleges, which is about 1.5 square kilometers, 5 institutions that are on a kind of continuous campus. So being a member of the Claremont Colleges is a big part of going to school in Claremont, because not only can you take advantage of what your home institution has to offer, but you also have so much more that the Claremont Colleges offer. So students can take classes across the other campuses. They're able to eat at the dining halls, become members of clubs and organizations on all of the colleges. So at CMC, while we are a small school, there are 1,347 undergraduate students. With the Claremont Colleges, you actually have about 5,500 or 5,500 undergraduate students here in Claremont. So a lot of times people think, yes, I do go to a small liberal arts college, but you also have the feel of a much larger kind of research style university in the United States. So I always say it's kind of the best of both worlds. What makes Claremont McKenna College quite different from other traditional liberal arts colleges is that we have a focus on the professional, a focus on applying what you're learning in the classroom, in your major, to the outside world. So while we do have a strong, broad liberal arts education that we offer our students, so students taking classes in multiple different areas, really building themselves into this well-rounded human being, we do want them to focus on how that knowledge how that plays out in the outside world, how to apply it to the big questions, the big problems, to professions, to public policy in the outside world. So while we have 32 different majors at CMC, everything from the natural sciences to the humanities, and definitely the social sciences, students actually, as I mentioned, have access to a wide variety of different majors through the other colleges here in Claremont. CMC's focus, of course, we're known for majors like economics, government, international relations, majors that you can kind of see these more applied areas. But our mission, I think, is really what makes us a little bit different, to prepare our students for lives of leadership in business, government, and the professions. The way that CMC does that is by focusing our resources, not only in the classroom instruction, but in practical experiences. So through research, over 78% of our students do research with a faculty member, on faculty member-led research. All of our students will work with our faculty on a final thesis paper. We have 11 research institutes and centers that we both house and resource on our campus. And then we also put an emphasis on practical experiences over the summer. So over 87% of students will take on internships every single summer while they're here at CMC. This means that the outcomes of Claremont McKenna are quite good. You'll see statistics a little bit later when we have the loop that's going through, but you'll notice that the companies that are really picking up our students, that are hiring our students, are these major companies around the world. So places like Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, Deloitte and Company consulting firm. There's a lot of places that our students are going that you wouldn't maybe think that a small liberal arts college would kind of lead them to, but it is that focus on the professionalism that we have here at CMC that really attracts students that are kind of doers, that want to use their time, their 4 years, to really engage in those areas, develop their resume. So that's a little bit about Claremont McKenna.
Great, thanks, Connor. And we're moving across the country, right? So it's 3:30 in the morning for Connor, it's 6:30 in the morning here, in the evening hours in Korea. I am Kaylani Loffen. I'm the Director of International Admission and Financial Aid at Davidson College, and I'm joined by a recent alumna. Have her introduce herself quickly, and then you'll hear more from her later. Yanji, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
All right, I thought I was unmuted. Hi, I'm Yanje. I graduated last May, so class of 2019. I was a theater major at Davidson and film and media studies minor.
Great, and you'll hear more from Yanje later as we go in through highlighting our alumni and some of the outcomes from our colleges. So Davidson is in Davidson, North Carolina. We're fortunate to be close to a major metropolitan city. We're about 25 minutes from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte is the second largest banking city in the United States after New York. So it goes New York, Charlotte, and then it goes out to San Francisco for the banking cities, and then Chicago. But there's a lot happening within Charlotte and Davidson, and that's what creates part of the student experience. Most of the time is spent on campus. We're 2,000 students in this residential community of Davidson. That's about 10,000 residents. And we are, as Connor described, and you'll find with Middlebury, a liberal arts and science college where everything that we do is for the benefit of our students. Faculty are very self-selecting and choosing to work at a liberal arts and science college. They know they're going to have hands-on experiences with students through research, through their development over time, through showing up for student performances, for being there to help them on research or to think about graduate school or getting their first job or first internship. So it's a lot of mentoring and it's a very personalized experience. At Davidson, you're going to find that we do a lot with leadership and service. Service is a big part of our identity. whether that's serving the local community of Davidson through different events or within Charlotte, and looking to see what are the needs of our local community. Our most popular majors are economics, political science, biology, and psychology, with computer science as the fastest growing. If you look at the purpose of our purpose, that lives of leadership piece comes in a variety of different ways. We need leaders who are going into the health field. We need leaders who are going into the arts, into the music, into the political fields, and then to finance fields. So really it's thinking about just developing students as leaders in a wide variety of different ways. We have a very strong, tight-knit community that is really founded through our honor code. We have a strong honor code at Davidson, which allows students to take their exams self-proctored. That means that we have a lot of trust in the community. As we're reading through applications at Davidson, we look for elements of trust, of doing the right thing when no one else is looking. We bring a community of scholars together who really want to be there to support one another throughout their time. So it's a very collaborative community. I know that Yanje will share more of her experience at Davidson and some of those personal elements, and also the community collaboration as you get to hear from her. We'll also highlight a little of some of the career treks that Davidson offers. So as you think about career development, we have a specialist in the career office who works primarily with international students in thinking about their development and career. So a specialist just for international students. And then part of career development is career treks to Wall Street in New York City, Silicon Valley, and then also Davidson in Southeast Asia and Davidson in Europe internship programs. So a lot of different opportunities for our students for their career and personal development. That's a little about Davidson, and I'll pass it on to Middlebury.
Thanks, Kaylani. So one of the reasons Kaylani, Connor, and I all travel together frequently is that we're all part of liberal arts colleges that have a lot of sort of similarities, but there's also some major differences between our three institutions as well. So Middlebury is another small liberal arts and sciences college in the United States, but we're located in the northeastern part of the United States, north of New York. And you can see by the picture that you're looking at, it's a much more rural part of the country where we have this sort of idyllic space where students can really delve into their studies for 4 years, but yet be in this safe and beautiful environment with mountains surrounding us. So I think a lot of our students are self-selecting and really enjoy that aspect of our community. Like Davidson, it's a small town that we're located in with about 10,000 residents sort of living in and around the campus. The campus is open for folks to sort of walk on and off of campus. There's no sort of walls or barriers. And we really like for students to be part of the community. And you can see in the mission that it's written right into our mission that students get engaged in their community. And so they get to practice that here, and we want them to continue that throughout their lives. We also are hoping that students begin to address the world's most challenging problems. And so through a variety of different ways, we're sort of preparing students to be engaged learners throughout their lives. And this idea of immersive learning is also really important to Middlebury as well. And so you'll see that in our language classrooms where most of our students are studying 1 or 2 other languages at any given time. All of our language classes are completely immersive, so students aren't hearing any English. Many of Middlebury's students will study abroad during their time for a semester or a year on programs where they pledge not to speak any English. So we have a lot of students graduating with multilingual skills, and that's very attractive to employers as well. So we're well known for our language programs and the programs that sort of dovetail with that, which would be things like international relations, international and global studies. Partly because of our location, I think environmental studies is also another very popular major at Middlebury. So a lot of students are sort of combining their interests in other parts of the world and the environment, and you'll see that in a lot of the research and in a lot of the student experiences. Like some liberal arts and sciences colleges, we do have some graduate programs, but none of them happen on our main campus during the academic school year. So you can really be assured at all three of these institutions that the focus is on the undergraduate, that the first 4 years of your experience after high school is what these colleges are set up to focus on and to develop students in their thinking, in their research, in their future. And so preparing them for really rich lives that might take some twists and turns. It's very possible that our students will have multiple careers and multiple interests in their lives. And so we're preparing students for lives that might take some twists and turns. Now, Arthur is with me. I'd like to introduce him. He is a graduate of Middlebury College. So Arthur, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for dialing in this evening, and the morning participants, especially to Connor and those on the East Coast as well. Yeah, so I went to Middlebury from 2008 to 2012. I graduated with a major in political science and sociology, then did my graduate school abroad, and am now working in Hong Kong.
Great, thank you, Arthur. We'll talk to both of the alums in a couple of minutes after we just review a few of the sort of the features that make a liberal arts and sciences college unique. You're going to want to unmute yourself, Connor.
Still don't have this down. So a few things about a liberal arts college is that really does make us unique, especially when compared to the much larger universities that I think a lot of students from around the world have thought of or know of. But that makes what we do at a liberal arts and science college actually way more appropriate for a younger person, for the 18 to 22-year-old, the student getting their bachelor degree. We want our students to be exploring. We want our students to not just focus in on one specific area of learning, but we want our students taking these classes from a wide variety of different areas. And really what that does is it allows you to, first of all, really understand what each of the majors are before actually committing to a specific major. But I think it also really encourages students to understand that whatever you're going to major in doesn't actually dictate what you do for the rest of your life. You actually get to see how philosophy applies to so many areas of the world, how the natural sciences and the skills that you develop in the natural sciences and the questioning and the seeking out of answers can actually be useful in things like banking and regular kind of industrial work. And so that brings you to the second point of our students, regardless of what their major is, whether they're history, philosophy, economics, business, that they can go in many different ways once they've graduated, because you're actually developing all of these skills and developing this greater understanding of the world through their education. We also know that students, once they graduated from college and go into their first job, don't always stay in that first career. They're not always working for that exact same company or that exact area. They're able to, because of their liberal arts college, really adapt to the significant changes that happen in the world and adapt and change and move in their careers through their lifetime. Kaylani.
Yep, thanks, Connor. And then the other attributes, as we've all mentioned, it's that focus on the undergraduate and the students who are between the ages of 18 and 22, 18 and 23, depending on when one starts those university years. And we don't have graduate assistants. That's a huge difference, is your classes are all taught by faculty who hold the highest degree in their field. They come with expertise and experience in their field. And we don't have side classes where graduate assistants are running discussion or conversations. We might have undergraduates from other parts of the world who are language assistants, living either in language houses or providing support to our language departments, but no graduate students on campus. So the focus really is on the undergraduate, all that attention and focus and access to research and access to what our professors are doing and the ability to collaborate with them is really abundant on our campus. If you come knowing you want to get in on research within chemistry and biology, or research in the social sciences and sociology, or research within different areas on campus, you have those opportunities, and likely more than once. As Connor mentioned, they have different research institutes on their campus. I know that students from Middlebury and Davidson have done research on campus and off campus. So all of our students have these opportunities to do independent research with the faculty advisor, or directly research that is coming with funding from National Institute of Health, for example. Our colleges get a significant amount of funding for our students to do research for outside entities. Another piece of that is just the network for internships and job opportunities. We do a lot of job shadowing. You'll hear from our alums on the benefit of our alumni networks and the strength of our alumni network. Many times you'll see our graduates or our students get their first internship with someone who either has a connection to Davidson through being an alum, not Davidson, I'm sorry, a connection to one of our schools by being an alum, or a professor relationship with professors at other colleges, or just all these connections. So you see how easily the tight-knit community allows our students to have a wide web of opportunities throughout their time and then after. And then the residential communities. Students live on campus for all 4 years. This is also very intentional. You're in these communities where then, the conversation that you have in the classroom doesn't end there, right? You continue on these conversations. The type of friendships that you build become even stronger because you're living these experiences together for all 4 years. And it also means being residential is that you get to see your professors more, in the sense that you're on campus on a weekend for a speaker coming in. More than likely a professor might be there as well, or you're in a performance and then your faculty members and your support system will show up for your performances. So it's really that residential piece that brings the liberal arts together within that learning community.
So the National Association of Colleges and Employers did a survey last year asking employers what the top skills they were looking for when they were making new hires. And the top 5 skills they mentioned wanting to see in their new hires were written communication skills, problem solving skills, the ability to work in a team, initiative, and analytical and quantitative skills. And so those 5 things are really the top skills that we are working on with our students daily. Every single one of our classes focuses on those skills, including some of the more quantitative topics. You will still see written communication being taught and encouraged in those classes as well. It's not until you get to number 10 where employers mention technical skills. So what we're hearing from employers is it's more important to practice those first 5 skills, and the technical skills sometimes come later in the form of grad school or on-the-job training. And so 100% of the employers surveyed ask for critical thinking and problem solving skills as a necessary skill. But rated just 57% of the incoming employees as proficient in this area. So clearly, students who have attended a small liberal arts and sciences college are well prepared for the employment field. And then I just put in that quote at the bottom there because I think it's really prescient for what's going on in the world today. A 4-year college degree should prepare students for the next 40 years of their working life and for a future that none of us can imagine. So David Deming, a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, said that last year. He probably couldn't have known that we would be in a place that we can't imagine right now. And so we're hoping that our students are well prepared to sort of be flexible and understand how they need to change in this quickly changing world. So next, we'd really like to get into talking with some of our alums and asking them sort of what their experiences were, because I think that's really helpful for students to understand this sort of the lived experience. So Kaylani, you had a question for Yunjae.
Yes, I do. I have my first question. Okay, Yonjay, how did a liberal arts college help you explore and find your career path? If you would just share some experiences of your time at Davidson at a liberal arts that'll really allowed you to explore and then land on where you are now or where you wanted to be.
Right. Yeah. Okay, where do I start? I think definitely going to a liberal arts college helped me delve into different majors and areas of interest that I wouldn't have otherwise. I think going into college, you face a lot of pressure of like what you almost feel like you need to know right away, like what you want to do, and kind of set your classes depending on that. But the perks of liberal arts college is that you get to kind of dip your toes into different areas without as much of the pressure of having to feel like you need to know like what you want to do during like your 4 years of study. So I knew going into Davidson, I definitely love theater, but my parents obviously wanted me to like kind of think of a different career path. And so I was looking into political science because I also really loved political science. But then I figured that double majoring was something that I felt like was too much on my plate. So I got to still take poli-sci classes, a lot of it during my first 2 years at Davidson, but then ended up going for, still going for a theater route and film and media studies minor. So the good thing is you can also minor in something that you have just as much interest in, but without the same class load as a major. And it really helped me find my career path through just the fact that when you're at a liberal arts college, you get to have personal relationships with professors. And I had a lot of existential crisis in college and a lot of office hours time where I went to my professors and talked to them about things going on, not only inside the classroom, but mostly outside of the classroom and things. And the good thing is that they are literally there to serve you and help you figure out or get a better sense of what's going on in your life and how to like manage that and figure out your career path. And currently I'm working at Da Vinci Film Festival. So it's a film institute where they host different film festivals throughout the year. Obviously, because of the pandemic, it's a little bit of a different structure right now. But I would have never thought that I would be able to actually like work at film. And I guess like the like we talked earlier on the slideshow, I think liberal arts definitely helps you with your communication skills, just because you're constantly interacting with people on a personal level. And that's something that I never realized that a workplace would value so much. And yet that is truly like one of the categories that like people look for, like effective communication.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So Arthur, I think that some students are nervous about going to a school where maybe the name isn't as well known in Korea because they're worried that it might limit their networking or their ability to find a job. Can you speak about your ability to network within the Middlebury community and how that's helped you in your career?
Yeah, happy to. I think it is a legitimate concern. I think it was one of the reasons why I was kind of debating between whether I wanted to go to a liberal arts or a larger research university. Maybe with the conclusion first, I think it was a fantastic decision to go to Middlebury. And if someone asked me whether I would do it all over again, I think the answer would be a definite yes. In terms of the network question, I do think, one of the benefits of going to a smaller liberal arts college is definitely the fact that, with a smaller network, you get stronger connections amongst the people who you do end up meeting. And so, with respect to, I think, Middlebury, we're one class is 600 to 800 students. Maybe it's grown a little bit since then, but by the end of my 4 years, I knew pretty much everyone in my year, along with people, at least the kind of names and faces of people, even if I had not spent that much time getting to know them personally, of everyone on campus. And that really carries forward into kind of your more formative and early years when you're in the workforce. Not only kind of having that close friend-based network, but also with alums. I remember, and Karen, please correct me if the name has changed since then, but I think there was a kind of a tool called Midnet, where I could reach out to alumni in a particular field. And I remember, in my senior year, I had reached out to people in multiple industries, kind of classic senior, who wanted to overachieve, was thinking about law school, business school, consulting, finance, and everyone that I had reached out to, was very, very accommodating and super helpful in terms of the job search, and just giving, me a lot of advice as to kind of what would make sense. And I think one other thing that, maybe isn't mentioned, elsewhere, is the people who have gone to liberal arts colleges, they really understand the demands of the workforce and kind of what the challenges are with respect to having a liberal arts degree and then going to work for, a software company or, a finance company or consulting. And so I really didn't have much of an issue looking for, work afterward. And I think my career trajectory has been kind of a testament to how, if you do come from a liberal arts college, you end up, 5-10 years later doing something completely different. I did a Fulbright fellowship in Korea after I graduated, kind of following the research related work that I had done on campus. Then went to graduate school, was thinking of becoming, of going into academia long term, and kind of going the professor track. But through, some connections that I made, through Middlebury, and people I met along the way, I actually joined the investment management company, which frankly in 2012, I would have never seen myself, as a sociology major working in finance, but it's been a very kind of interesting turn of events. And I think for many people, one of the misconceptions is that if you go to a liberal arts college, then, going into the professional, services field can be a bit more challenging. But it's always, Middlebury is always a topic of conversation, with myself and my colleagues. And therefore, knock on wood, I haven't been let go yet, in this uncertain environment, but
Great.
It's definitely been great and a great story to tell in terms of, how I got here, which has been, somewhat unconventional.
Great, thank you. And I would say that Davidson and Claremont McKenna would have similar networks that students are accessing as they graduate, or even during their time on campus, for finding internships, for just bouncing ideas off of alumni. Middlebury is working on getting a mentor for each student, an alumni mentor. So there's a lot of sort of advice giving that happens through these networks.
Yeah,
if I can jump in really quickly,
Yeah.
just because I was unable to have my alumni join us today, but you see her information right there. But just a little bit about that network is, she was an economics major at CMC, yet still held internships while she was here in 2 different tech companies, one small little startup, one internship at a much larger company, I guess, Google. Went on then, after she graduated, worked at a healthcare facility, or a healthcare company in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and now back in Seoul, again, back at kind of a startup area in WeWork. And the reason why she could get all of those opportunities really was through the alumni network of Claremont McKenna, and it would be the same at Davidson and Middlebury. So for our students, if you want to work at Google, We have plenty of people that are CNC graduates at Google, and I'm sure those large universities do as well, but the fact that you can actually have access to our alums to help you understand, okay, how do you get that internship? How do you interview, who you're going to interview with? That all comes through having that small network and the liberal arts alums that want to be working with students that are currently at our small colleges.
Great, thanks, Connor. Thank you. Yonjay, another question for you. I can imagine when you were leaving high school that many of your friends went to a variety of different types of universities around the world and even in the US. And as you're leaving Seoul International School, tell me, how can you compare your experience at Davidson at a liberal arts college with your friends who went to larger universities? Some of the differences as you talk about your experiences. And if you could just share some of those with us.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question. Yeah, talking about this really brings back like nostalgia, just because I graduated a year ago. I miss my friends. But anyways, I would say larger, in comparison to larger universities, yeah, I have friends who went to Berkeley and NYU and other places, and definitely I do see the contrast in terms of the fact that I feel like my experience, at least on a personal level, was much more intimate, since Davidson is a very smaller school in comparison to those like bigger private universities. And actually, I don't know if Berkeley is private, but so yeah, it was totally normal for me to talk with my professors after classes, but I know that's not the case for like a lot of classes at NYU or Berkeley in larger universities. And I think definitely the fact that a lot of liberal arts colleges are somewhat away from like the main hub of a city, as much as it is somewhat like it's like a drivable distance, but the fact that you're in a smaller town with a smaller number of people, you just get to know everyone. And like Arthur said, like I knew most of my my peers in my class by the time I graduated, or even like at least by face if I hadn't talked to them in person. And you just get to mingle with people who have so many different interests than you do and who come from totally cool different backgrounds. And I feel like that's not something you get if you go to a larger university, just because it's so much more daunting, I guess, to go up and talk to someone in your lecture hall when there's like at least, I don't know, like 100 students. And it's so much easier for you to like talk to someone when there's like only 30 people in your class. And I feel like going to a larger university, you end up finding your community first year of college, and then people kind of stick to that just because it's like really daunting to like branch out and like see what other people outside of your community is doing. But for liberal arts, like I feel like truly like people do make up the reason why people go to college, or I think people should like consider college, not only for like the literal academic part of it, but just like how much I learned outside of the classroom really shaped who I am today. And I'm not the same person I was my first year of college versus now. And it's all through my personal relationships with my professors and my friends and my peers in my class. And I think you just have so much more of a richer and more, I don't want to say diverse because that's such a like word, especially for like colleges, but like truly like a variety of experiences through getting to know other people outside of the life that you know. So I totally do, if if you are looking for a really rich college experience, I so do recommend liberal arts colleges, because I think they can provide a really rich experience that you won't get to have otherwise.
Great, thanks, Yonjay. That was great.
Arthur, you mentioned that you did some research at Middlebury. Can you talk about sort of what that process is like and how you sort of came to an idea, how your professors supported you and that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, it's so long ago. It seems like gosh, it's been like over 10 years. I can't believe it. Sure. Yeah, no, research was, I think, one of the biggest parts of my experiences at Middlebury. I actually applied, I think, as a philosophy major when I was a prospective student. But when I got to kind of campus, I took an amazing sociology class with a gentleman by the name of Linus Owens, and kind of never looked back since then. And so I think, kind of piggybacking off what Yonjay said, the relationship with your professors is very, very very close. And I think I went to graduate school at Oxford in the UK. We had a very small class size in my cohort. I think about 9 people, but even there, I think I think the personal relationships I had with my faculty at Middlebury were not only more personal, but they were just so much more vested in my kind of education and development as a potential researcher and scholar. And so I think in my case, I also went to international school in Korea, and ironically didn't know that much about Korean history. If someone asked me, who the first president was, I would say, George Washington. And that's not, that's not what my American peers were asking. And so I kind of used that as a launching pad to do some self-studying and kind of tailor a lot of my coursework at Middlebury to focus on kind of Korea-related research. And I ended up doing quite a bit of research on North Korean refugee resettlement. And so, during my second and third year, I was kind of climbing the 101, 201, 301 ranks in terms of classes, but I also wanted to do some independent study. And so I applied for, and there are various grants located in different parts of the college. So my advice to you is to check every web page, and the more thorough you are, you will find cache under different rocks and trees. But I was very graciously given a grant from the Rohatyn Center of International Affairs, and they kind of paid for my travel to Korea and a lot of the costs that were related to my fieldwork, working directly with kind of North Korean refugees who had resettled here, and supporting my research endeavors. And that was really a big part of my not only my senior thesis. I did one in the sociology department, one in the political science department, but that also became a springboard for my Fulbright fellowship and my graduate studies. And kind of to tie it back, maybe final point, to tie it back to the career question that was mentioned earlier, as part of all this research that started at kind of a liberal arts college and kind of working together with my faculty, that led to me visiting North Korea a couple times and starting kind of a entrepreneurial venture there, which somehow, many steps along led to my current role at a financial company. And so I think the lesson is you really don't know, how life is going to pan out. I mean, COVID is a great example, but I think when I entered as a first year, I was certain that I was gonna graduate, top of the class and go to law school and then go into international arbitration and, be super famous. But it changes along the way. And I think, that's really a function of the people you meet and the mentors you meet. And I think, the mentorship that I received during my research at Middlebury was a very big component in kind of helping to shape what direction I wanted to kind of take my career. So yeah, maybe leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughtful response. Jungrak, I think we're probably ready for some questions from the audience, if you'd like to delve in there.
Great. Well, this has been such an interesting time. I just love being able to hear not only from the admission side, but also from the alums. Maybe you three should start thinking about traveling with your alums here when COVID is over. But yeah, I just actually would like to direct this first question to our two alums. But before I do, I want to give a big shout out to all of you who are on YouTube. We can see that many of you are actually on YouTube tonight. So welcome. And I also want to encourage you that there is a chat box. Even though we're on Zoom, we can also see your questions from YouTube come in. So please make use of that comment box. And now is your time if you would like to ask questions, and we will try our best to address all of them. Okay, so the first question that we have here today is about the whole experience of coming from abroad, and maybe you're a US citizen who has just lived your life a lot overseas, or maybe you're an international student. But so Yunjae and Arthur, if I could ask you to recall back when you were 17, 18 years old and you got on that flight to go to college for the first semester. How was your transition like, and how did your respective schools support you? And then after they answer, maybe our admissions officers can fill in any more information.
Yunjae, do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, sure. Definitely, I think, oh man, first year fall, transitioning from high school to, I think, undergrad in general is going to be a tough time for everyone, just because you don't know what to expect. And even like class structures are so different too. No, I'm just laughing at like how different everything was. I think definitely, well, maybe because I have lived in the US before, it wasn't as much of a culture shock, but I know that a lot of people who are coming from Korea or like even like different countries have kind of like a culture shock, just because oftentimes liberal arts colleges, it's not like larger universities in like the hub of like a metropolitan city. So you get to kind of experience college culture, but also like US college culture. And I know initially can be like a lot. And in a liberal arts setting, like one of the main things is like, because your classes are small, you participate often, and that's totally not a thing you do, I think, especially at like high schools in Korea. And so the fact that you get to go out there and you were asked to take up space, I think was so daunting for me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't make myself small anymore. I have to like talk about my opinions in front of other people. And like, so that was like a daunting aspect for me. I think the good thing is, I would say most to like all liberal arts colleges, I feel like definitely at Davidson, we have like a really strong bond with like the international community. So going into it, I went to the international orientation. So it's like an orientation before the regular orientation, just geared towards international students. And during that time, thankfully, you get to like meet other peers and potential friends. And I think being on campus like 2 weeks before the actual start date of class really, really helped. And some of my like closest friends are within the international community. And Davidson in ways like that, where they provide you a community and kind of like a place to start off of, was very helpful. I would say definitely, like as a first year then, I was the only Korean girl in my grade, and also the only other Korean people were like, I think it was like maybe like 5 other students or 6 other students. And I was like, oh my God, like, who do I talk to, or like, what's going on? But if I like survived it somehow, then like 4 years ago, I think like Davidson is doing a much better like job of like integrating students and making sure you feel supported. So I think it's gonna, I mean, my words won't prepare you in any way for like what you'll experience, but it's okay if that involves a lot of crying, because it's a good time when you're looking back on it. I don't know if that made sense. Yeah, Arthur, if
Yeah,
you go ahead.
yeah, I think you know, Yunja hit the nail on the head. I would describe it as growing pains. The first year is really challenging for everyone, and I think particularly and particularly with respect to Middlebury where I went, I was not prepared for anything that rural. Having grown up in Seoul, used to going to the family mart or the 7-Eleven down the street for a coffee, and when I got to campus, 8 p.m. There's nothing to help me power through my night except the grill, which is an amazing place. But so yeah, I mean, it was a huge transition. I mean, it's a transition for students who are coming from like a neighboring city or town nearby. But I think this it's also been kind of the single biggest asset, and given that I think most of the participants joining this call will also be coming from Korea. Looking back, not to compare to like make broad generalizations, but I think part of the experience of going to a liberal arts college and being forced to get to know your peers very well, get to know people from different backgrounds very well, is really what has kind of propelled my personal development and my career forward. I mean, you can drop me off, in the middle of nowhere in any country, and I will find a way to, get home, whether, that's like selling stuff outside a gas station, or there's just no fear anymore, right? I think, one of the challenges that a lot of my peers who are my age and in the workforce are going through is, they may have gone to a school with a very large kind of Korean student population, and now they're having to work with a lot of people internationally, and they find it a little bit more challenging. I mean, from a language perspective, it's very easy, right? But and this may be dated, but there was a big learning curve in terms of figuring out like who Lady Gaga was when I got to campus, and just being familiar with kind of the culture. And that being said, I went to an international school for 12 years, had gone to the US every summer, was probably better prepared for it than some of my peers were. And yet, by the time I left Middlebury, I have my best friend from Middlebury is from a place called Glastonbury, Connecticut, which I couldn't probably locate on a map like 10 years ago. And he visited me in Seoul 2 years ago. We're still very close. And so it's definitely not easy for everybody, and your own personal journey will present its own challenges, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And you might as well kind of dive right in, because it's not going to kill you, and it's going to be super enjoyable. And at your wedding down the line, you'll just have a much more diverse group of people there to show off to your parents and your friends.
That's great. I mean, as you can see, these two alums are very articulate and very thoughtful, and our admissions officers here today have all talked about the importance of having students who can collaborate, who can communicate effectively. So admissions officers, could you speak to how you find this trait in the application process to ensure that you get students like Yeonjae and Arthur on your campus?
I guess I could start. There's a lot of different pieces of an application, and there's a lot of different ways that students can sort of express their interest in diving into something new, being adventurous, all of those sort of aspects that Arthur and Yeonjae were talking about. And so I would say the essay is a great place to sort of highlight your willingness to do something different and exciting and try something new. And also an initial view interview or another type of interview. But really those interviews are a great place for students to, you know, talk about themselves in a way that we can see and understand and get to know you better. So it's not all about test scores and your transcripts. I mean, we certainly want to see that you're doing well in school, but beyond that, we want to see that you're sort of ready and excited about the types of opportunities that our colleges will present to you.
I think we say this a lot, this group, Middlebury, Davidson, and Claremont McKenna, while we all sound very similar in terms of the things that we do on our campus, we're all very different styles of institutions and emphasizing different parts to our education. And so therefore, you know, we're looking for different types of students. So when you're looking at schools and finding out, okay, this one matches with my personality, we're also looking and saying this personality matches with our type of institution. And so a student that Middlebury would admit, maybe I wouldn't, and Davidson maybe would admit a student, or I would admit a student that Davidson wouldn't, because we're all looking for very different styles and types of students. And so, you know, for CMC, we do place a lot of emphasis on your engagement, your involvement outside of the classroom, on the way that you interact with other people. Oftentimes I'm looking for the type of student that when their teacher says, you know, they could be a little bit more quiet in the classroom. I want that type of student that's going to be kind of shouting out as well.
And I would say, I'll confess, I went back to look at Yeonjae's application and the very few pieces we have left of it. But I remember, and every time I saw her on campus, I would have a flashback to reading her application. She had an interest in theater. She shared that. She submitted this beautiful monologue with her application. And that is where I got to really see her come to life, right? And initial view was before Yeonjae and Arthur's time when they were applying, but that piece to see her face and that was part of her story, helped her application come to life, right? That piece plus the fact that in her Why Davidson, I think each one of our schools has supplements or different parts on how we get to know you. She wrote about classes that we offered. She wanted to take theater and social justice. It's a class we have at Davidson. And she wrote, you know, kind of details of why she really wanted to be there. So when we're reading applications, we pull out, as Connor said, we're also looking for you as a fit to place, right? And after watching her monologue and thinking about how she might contribute to the theater community and how she might benefit from a place like Davidson with the very interdisciplinary courses we offer, that was a good fit, right? I could see that she had done her research on place, and those are things that we look for on, you know, you not only finding fit, but making sure that you're going to benefit from our community and then also contribute to place, because we look for students who are going to contribute. Both Arthur and Yeonjae said, we all of a sudden had to speak up in class and share our opinion. And while that might be daunting and intimidating at first, these are places that are going to help encourage you to do that. But we can also get a glimpse of that through something like Initial View. This is a platform for you to share your story We want to know your story. You know, when you're writing that essay, who are you as a human being? Those are things that we look for.
Great. And Yanje, do you want to just say any few words because this is a talk about international student outcomes. So any words of advice to all who are listening today about what they should be thinking about strategically as they make their college decision?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think one area that people oftentimes overlook, and I kind of did too, was the location of the college. I think oftentimes you're like, oh, I'm sure if I like the school, I'm gonna like adapt to the surrounding environment. And while that is true, I think environment has way more of an effect on people than you realize. So definitely like really think about when you're applying to colleges, like whether you can see yourself in the area that the college is located. I think that's actually really important, especially if you're, let's say, if you're looking into a college and it's in a state that's mostly like rainy, that is going to affect your mood, and that is going to affect like the activities you do inside and outdoors. So that's definitely an area that I feel like we don't talk about enough, but has a tremendous impact on your mental and emotional health as a student at undergrad for 4 years. And also know that I know especially a lot of students from Korea like focus a lot on like name value, and I'm sure there's a lot of pressure from like parents too, but I hope when you think about the colleges that you apply to somewhere where you also have a heart in it, because it's ultimately your experience. Your parents are not going to be the ones going over to college for you. So whether like really look into the different, I think what speaks volumes about a college is look into how they dealt with, look into how they dealt with the whole COVID pandemic. Because I think that speaks volumes about colleges. Like, see what the college did for their students when they suddenly told them that they need to leave campus. Did they let other students stay? What did they do to accommodate those students who are suddenly thrown into this situation? Because I think ultimately your college, oftentimes they don't always hold up to this, but your college is there to take care of you, and it's ultimately geared towards your experience. So really look into how an institution cares for their students, because I think that's also has a tremendous impact on your emotional and mental health there.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah, very, very timely for the age in which we live in today. Well, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our session. It is actually a few minutes past the hour. So I would like to thank our wonderful admissions officers and our alums, Yanje and Arthur, for joining us today. I would like to give, I know we're a few minutes past the hour, but if there are any final thoughts, would Karen, Kaylani, or Connor would like to say just a short few words, and we'll wrap it up.
Go ahead, Gail.
I say I loved hearing what Arthur and Yanje said, and I think the sentiment is just dive in, right? Just dive in and take a hold of your experience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's much more about community here, and I think hearing from the alums really did kind of let that sink in of it is a very different experience at a small liberal arts college than you're going to have at a large university, because of the community and the ability to be in community.
And it prepares you really well for those twists and turns that life takes. And it's really fun. I always love hearing from alums and hearing about those twists and turns, because every single student has a different experience and takes it in a different direction after college. And so, it really prepares you well for that.
Great. And as an international student myself, way back in the days, I want to just echo everything that was said here. I think it's wonderful that we took this time to talk about international student experience, and I think the advice that was parsed out today here was really valuable. And so thank you so much for joining us. 오늘 참석해 주셔서 진심으로 감사합니다. 다음 주에도 같은 시간에 Duke, Northwestern, 그리고 Vanderbilt 사정관들이랑 같이 이제 얘기를 나눌 겁니다. 그래서 다음 주에 또 만나겠습니다. So we'll see you again next week on Tuesday at the same time. So thank you for joining us and have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.